I'm Michael Kain, and we are in the heart of Hocking County. I moved here in 2018, and almost within the first year, I started noticing strange activity. I've seen lights on many occasions, same thing. I see them out in the woods and obviously think that someone's out there and they're got to be lost. If you're here, you're lost. This is not like, oh, it's a Saturday night and this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I've got to get up for work at 5:30 in the morning. You know, it starts to really wear on you. I've sit and listened long enough. It's not just knocks. There is a pattern to it. Almost seems like there is a call and response that I've been able to listen to over the years and be like, well, okay, there's a knock across the pond. The next thing I'm going to hear is a pop up on the hill. Then I want to hear something that sounds like metal, and this happens repeatedly. Like when stuff's strange here, it's almost like there's things communicating around you. You're always kind of surrounded. There's a repeating pattern. The first thing I always hear is like a tree knock. You'll hear a tree knock on the other side of the pond. And then it's about 10 minutes. And for forever, I thought something was moving. It was the same thing, but around 10 minutes, you'll hear a mouth pop, like a, and then about 10 minutes after that, you'll hear what sounds like something hitting metal, but way out in the woods. Just a bonk. But it sounds like something hitting metal. And oddly enough, there's a fallen down homestead that has a metal roof. And that is the only thing I know anywhere around here that has metal. But that is this, you know, it's like a pattern I hear. This property is 750 acres. It's almost entirely wooded. Some years are less than others. It's very unpredictable. At least here, most of the activity happens either between like 7 and 11, which is kind of odd, or late at night. But usually if something's active here, hitting the cabin, it starts early and then comes back, you know, like the rapping on the windows. There's times I hear what sounds like a car crash. The impact is, you could equate it to how loud a car crash would be, and you'll walk out here and it'll be like this. It makes zero sense. That happens pretty frequently. And that's it. All kind of, to me, it's like it's a season. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. It starts getting hot, it gets muggy, you get all this foliage comes in, and it seems like the activity starts. Some years it's really rough. Some years it's barely nothing. It almost feels like something's just cruising through. And I don't know if it's because I'm outside, so I hike every day of my life. I get home from work and I just hike. And so I'm out here a lot. I'm outside a lot. I'm sitting out here all the time. So I don't know if that's why I notice it more, or if something notices me because I'm here. One interesting thing about this cabin was, it's an old cabin, but when I bought this cabin, no one had lived in this cabin for 20 years. This was a family's holiday cabin. So they would come to Thanksgiving and Christmas and just on occasion. So this whole 750 acres, for the most part, didn't have anybody living on it for 20 years. Really strange experience happened right up this hill here. And I came out and I had a headlight on. At times I do some night hiking here, but I came out of my cabin and just as my headlamp was on, as soon as I hit up the ravine there, these eyes look like this. They look like oval shape, about this far apart and staring at me. And I'm just looking, and you can see because of the eye shine, it looks away, looks back at me, blinks, looks away again, and something just moves off. And The next day I went out there, the only thing that's there, it was standing behind a tree. And it's probably a good 6 to 7 foot pine tree. And it was above that. And that was definitely some strange eye shine. And it was reflecting back red. You know what's funny about this? Now, when I first moved down here, I didn't know anybody. And it takes a while to kind of settle in. I still don't know too many people on my road. But over the years, I've met people. And out of the blue, once they kind of hear, maybe they see a cast or something, they start sharing stories about this area. And 2 of them happened in the same woods that this Clear Creek Metro Park is a park that you can actually access from these woods. If probably be about a 3-hour hike, but it take you right into Clear Creek. And one of them was, I used to be a musician and really good friends with this couple. And my friend's wife, just out of the blue one time, said, "You know what? I saw one of those things that you're talking about." I said, what are you talking about?" She's like, "One of them hairy ape men." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I've known you for 20 years. You've never mentioned it." She's like, "I never thought about it." She's like, "But when I was a teenager, that's the place where a lot of the kids would go when they, back roads and stuff." And her and all of her friends, she said there was a big naked hairy guy that looked like a caveman. And she just said, "We just thought it was some crazy wild man out in the woods." And I thought that was really interesting. And there's another couple who were out here mushroom hunting, and her husband's not into none of this stuff. I mean, he's a hardcore dude. He's a hunter. I'd probably say he's a hard guy to get close to. And we're out here looking for mushrooms, and he's like, had something happen to me at Clear Creek. Me and my dad. He's like, we're in a truck, and he goes, this huge hairy thing. And he goes, my dad has to slam on the brakes. He goes, I remember my head like almost hitting the dash, almost hitting this thing. He goes, this thing just walked right out in front of our truck. Again, it's almost like people have these stories around here that they keep tight to their chest. And once they feel comfortable around you, they'll start opening up.
Seeing a creature such as Bigfoot is nothing short of a life-changing experience. Those who have encountered a Sasquatch agree that it made them question their preconceived notions of what's possible in the world. They're left scared and concerned, wary of surroundings that used to seem relatively safe. In some cases, seasoned outdoorsmen refuse to return to the woods that once gave them solace. It stands to reason, then, that there is something extremely unsettling about seeing a Sasquatch near one's home. When a house is close to a wooded area, forest, or nature preserve, the chance is always there to witness all manner of animal activity, including the most unexpected of all. As disturbing as it may seem, there are a multitude of reports of Bigfoot appearing in the backyard. On a misty August morning in 1985, a woman and her husband had just moved into a newly built home in Lorain County, Ohio, west of Cleveland. One morning, the witness was startled when her 2 large dogs began barking ferociously. When she entered the yard to investigate, she spotted a large, reddish-brown creature with long arms running towards a nearby creek. Later in the day, after regaining her composure, she would investigate the area and discover large foot and toe prints, as well as areas where it appeared that the creature may have slipped or even fallen while running away. When human development pushes into formerly wild lands, it creates the potential for a bewildering experience. Unfortunately, the result is that home loses a sense of security when Sasquatch is involved.
More frequently than you want to know about, because we like to think that our home is our castle, it's our fortress, we're safe there. And you don't want to think that if you let Mittens outside, that Mittens isn't going to come back, because there might be something out there. But occasionally, apparently there is, because I have spoken with people who will go outside and see something large relatively close. And if it's a one-off thing, it's scary. But if it's something that happens multiple times, then you start paying a little bit more attention. And you can tell, is that, my crazy neighbor? No, it was too big, or something like that. Rummaging through trash cans is something that I've heard about and people have told me about. And if I were really hungry, I might do something like that too, because it's calories, and trash is a lot slower than a deer, so it's easier to get at. So that might be one reason. And again, you've got to have people to have sightings, and people's yards, that's where people are. I think one of the issues that I dealt with early on in my research was, how do you bring a possible Bigfoot close to a house so you can witness it, so you can record it? We were trying to do that it was near Hillsdale. We were trying to bring Bigfoot to the house. We used all sorts of things. We tried to bait. We tried to wood knock. We actually used whale calls. And then we were able to create, I couldn't, but these guys were sound guys, and they were able to create infrasound that was with whale calls. So you'd blast these whale calls out into the woods with infrasound. We couldn't hear it, but they could detect it, and just to see if it would create any activity, and to try to bring something in the woods near the house. And what we ended up doing is, legitimately, 2 weeks after we were playing around one night, I get this call, and the guy says, "How do I stop Bigfoot from being near my house?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "During the day, my wife gets mad because something is slapping the siding of the house." And so I said, "Okay, we got to put a stop to this." And so we put up motion detecting lights and game cameras. It was done. There was no more activity. But just before the slapping of the house occurred, one of the guys gave me a call, and he says, "You got to hear this." And he played a recording over the phone to me. And I said, "That's a humpback whale call." And I said, "I thought we weren't going to play humpback whale calls anymore," because the wife was upset. And he's like, "That's not ours." So something in the woods was mimicking a humpback whale call, and we recorded it. It's so weird. There aren't that many humpback whales in Michigan.
So I tell people Kentucky's number 5 in the country with Bigfoot reports. And that's the BFRO's database and the KBRO's database. And the reason is, we live in their backyards, they live in our backyards. And they've learned over thousands of years to get along with us, but they are curious. Lots of reports of them looking in windows, hitting houses. Got a couple great stories.
I know that they are everywhere in the watersheds and even in between. I think they move as they can, maybe farms. I would say yes, because they've been seen going through dumpsters. Mount Clemens, I mentioned earlier, with the storm drain that I suspect some members live in. There was an actual BFRO report of one of these beings going through Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that, going through their dumpster. I've heard of similar sightings out in the farmland beyond suburban Detroit, which is not surprising because they're everywhere.
Well, let me tell you about my experience here with this backyard Sasquatch. If you want to call this place this, I guess you could call this backyard, even though we're sitting in the middle of the woods in my yard. I come down here in 21. I had a shoulder surgery, rotator cuff surgery. So I had to sleep in the front room in a recliner because I couldn't lay down. And as I was in there sleeping in the chair that I showed you, window right next to me, I hear a rock. And you know how when you can hear something, you can identify what it is. It's an amazing kind of a picture that your mind creates. I heard the rock hit the window, and then it falls into the gravel, and I could hear the rock fall into the gravel and the noise that it made. At that point in time, I had a Presa Canario dog, which is a very aggressive guard dog, big dog, well over 100 pounds, begins to act very aggressive and then turns very afraid and crawls up in my lap. Likes to kill me, but he crawls up in my lap. So he and I both didn't really want to look out the window. And so the next night, it was such an odd thing. It was a very calm night. There was no wind and there's no trees around my house. I pushed them all out when this was all forest here. And the next night I asked my wife, won't you come out here and sit with me and let's sleep out here and see if this happens again. Sure enough, at almost the same time, again, a rock hits the window, lands in the gravel. The dog wakes up, the dog gets aggressive, the dog wants to hide and climb in my lap.
Yeah, they watch them. They watch the whole family from the other side of the fence. You know, they come up and even like if they're too tall for the fence, and the one instance I'm thinking of, they lean down and do just the eyes over. Yeah, so they love kids, or they love watching. Depends on the Sasquatch, whether they're nice or not. But yes, they love to watch us. It's curiosity. Without a doubt, they are fascinated by us like we are fascinated by them. You know, one of their nicknames is the Watchers.
A young couple was renting an old farmhouse at the end of a dead-end road, never had any visitors. Some evenings they'd go on the porch and they heard like a woman screaming from the holler by the house, and just a really weird scream. Well, then one evening, it was around dusk, I'd say, they were playing with their baby on the living room floor, and something walked past their front window. And they look at each other like, are you expecting anybody? No, I'm not expecting anybody. Here, hold the baby. So the guy got up, went to the front door, opened the door, and there's nobody there. There's a barbed wire fence just outside the door. The top rung is vibrating like something had stepped over it. Because that's really weird. He goes to his wife, I'm going to walk out there in front of the door. You tell me, the window, you tell me what I look like. He walked out there. His head was at the bottom of the window. What they saw was at the top of the window. All black, walked right by the window. Same couple, when they put that baby to bed at night, it would cry. Something would smack the house near where the baby was crying. They did it multiple times. It would hit their house. Again, very remote area, no neighbors. Who's going to hit their house? You know, I've got other reports like that where Bigfoots are not afraid to come up to people's homes.
Southeast of Traverse City, and even closer to that is a place called Rennie Lake. There is a trail there called the Boardman Trail, and it was right off of that trail. I was on the trail. The Bigfoot was off to the side of the trail. So there's signs all along the way telling you if you go this way, you know, you're going to be on this trail. If you go this way, you're going to be on this trail. There's hills, a lot of trees. It's a protected area, so there's not, you know, I did see one house, but I'm assuming that whoever lives there is probably involved with working on that particular area. So we're not talking about residential. It's definitely nature. There's trees, a river, meadows, that type of thing. I had gone up there. I live right outside of Detroit. I had gone up there for a weekend-long women's stand-up paddleboard retreat on Rennie Lake. So I was staying at a house there off the lake. Beautiful house, beautiful, beautiful environment. Like the whole thing was just gorgeous to look at. I had found out there was a trail close by, and I love to walk on trails in the morning time because I feel like it's just very magical, right? Wildlife is out and about and everything just kind of comes alive. So I made an intention to go and walk this trail by myself early one morning. We did have like a group outing scheduled for that, but I wanted to go by myself. So I want to say I was there probably around 7:30 a.m. I parked in the trailhead parking lot that was closest to where I was coming from. I hadn't explored around. I didn't know at that time there was a bigger parking lot on the other side. I want to say that the main trail that I walked on is a loop, and it's about 6 miles long. At a certain point, you go over the Boardman River. And so I parked my car in the little parking lot closest to where I was coming from and just started walking the trail. It was a gorgeous morning. It was like, I want to say mid-June. It'll be 2 years ago, month after next. So this was 23. So I'm walking around this trail. There was a couple of other people, not a lot of people, that I also passed going, the opposite direction of me on the trail. Like I said, I was there about 7:30 a.m. Lots of birds. I'm stopping along the way. There's benches. I'm just kind of taking in the wildlife and the scenery because it was really pretty, and I was not in any hurry at all. So I'm walking around. I get to what was about the halfway point. Okay, so you cross over a bridge, crosses over the river. When nobody else was around at that time, I had just passed what had to be the main trailhead parking lot because it was much larger, which surprises me that it was so close to an area where there's got to be a lot of traffic coming in and out of. So I had just passed that. I had passed an outbuilding, which I assumed was used for maintenance tools and things like that. I'm looking to my left where the water was. The river was running off to my left. I'm looking to my left. I'm the only person around. And I heard a snap, like the snap of a twig, the sound from my right. So I whipped my head around because, like I said, I thought I was alone. And when I looked over to my right, I saw something that was completely black from head to toe, without exception, just totally dark. It was either black or very dark brown. I saw it rise up on two legs, and in the same motion that it very quickly stood up, it turned and it disappeared into the area, the forest behind it. When I say it was fast, it was super fast. I mean, this happened so quick, my mind almost couldn't keep up with registering what was happening. And the motion of standing up and turning was almost like one motion. And it was not a hulking appearance. It was a little bit taller than me. I'm 5'5". It turned. The thing that sticks out in my mind is the position of what it would have been its right arm was at a right angle. And it was almost like what you see people that are on track when they're taking off from the starting line and they're kind of pumping their arms. And it was doing that as it turned, I'm assuming to try to get away quickly. Had it not made that original sound, that twig breaking, I would have probably walked on by and never known it was there because I was looking in the other direction. It turns, it disappears so quickly into the forest behind where it was. I'm kind of dumbfounded because number one, it takes me a second to realize what's happening. And number two, it's gone. So many times since then, I've asked myself, you had your eyes on it. How did you let it get away from you? But it just moves so fast, so stealthy, that I didn't see where it went. I just disappeared. I don't think that it literally disappeared, but I think it just moved away so fast that I just didn't see where it went. I hung around for about 5 to 10 minutes afterwards because I was very curious at first, right? I was wanting to see if I could see it again. So I didn't go off the trail, but I was walking along the edge of that trail back and forth, looking, hoping that I could see movement again, get another glimpse of it. I did it. I started to feel more frightened as time went on. Very curious at first, but that turned into, the realization that I'm there by myself and what I just saw. And I've often wondered too, because when I was looking for it, hoping to see it again, I was kind of looking at eye level. And I've wondered if it could have possibly, another explanation for it getting away so stealthily from me, could it have possibly dropped to the ground? Because we hear about them doing the spider crawl thing. And because I was looking at eye level, I wasn't looking on the ground for it. Could it have been there just very still and I didn't see it? I'll never know the answer to that. So I hung around 5 to 10 minutes at the most, walking back and forth, looking, hoping to see it again, looking for some movement. Never did see anything again. Then I became kind of scared and I decided I was going to get back to my car. I was almost at the exact furthest point from my car at this time. It took me an hour to walk back to my car, so I was about 3 miles away. As I was walking away, I heard a very rapid succession of what I would call tree knocks. So I didn't see it again, but I did hear that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, where there's one, there's probably more. And if this was a juvenile, say for instance, based on its size, there's going to be some adults not very far away. I was pretty creeped out and part of me wanted to run, but I didn't want to act like prey, and incite some kind of predator behavior. So I walked as quickly as I could. I got on the phone. with my fiance and was sending him screenshots of my location and whatnot just in case. But my battery was pretty low because I had been taking videos and pictures. And so I had to kind of like be scarce with that because I didn't want it to completely die too. Got back to my car. I sat in my car for a while. I tried to register, what just happened. I couldn't believe it. I know what I saw, but it's so shocking, and it takes a minute for it to really sink in. So the sighting and the wood knocks, I've never had either one of those experiences out in the woods before. And, I don't think that's coincidental. I think that maybe the wood knocks were an adult, warning, letting people know, we've been sighted, or, who knows, there's a lot of possibilities there. But that was my experience. I didn't have any qualms about going out into the woods or the forest by myself. In fact, I liked the idea of getting further away from where other people would be. Now I think a lot harder about that. I think I'm much more aware of my vulnerabilities in those kinds of situations. I would definitely go back. I hope to go back. I haven't gone back. I would probably bring somebody with me, but yeah, I would go back. I would be a little bit more unnerved. Like I said, I don't do it with the ease that I used to do it, but I would still do it. Well, it definitely had the shape of a humanoid. Like, we're talking 2 legs, a torso, 2 arms, a head that sat on shoulders. But beyond that, no, because for 2 reasons. It happened so fast. And secondly, it was all just so dark, it was just completely dark. I didn't even make out like the whites of eyes. But like I said, it did happen really fast. If the mouth was closed, you don't see teeth, and the whites of the eyes aren't showing, that much. I mean, it was literally just dark, like to each extremity, head to toe, fingertip to fingertip. There was no variation there whatsoever.
Hypothesizing about the behavior of an unclassified creature is more than difficult. But sometimes there are behavioral indicators that suggest the intention of a creature lurking in someone's backyard, coming in close to homes. In winter of 1978, near Newberry, Ohio, 2 young boys were hiking in the woods near their home. The 8- and 10-year-old brothers came face to face with a 6.5-foot tall creature from only about 30 feet away. It was covered in dark hair, but one witness described it as not being too thick because he could see skin underneath. The creature made eye contact with them before fleeing through the thick snow with what the witness described as superhuman speed. Later that same night, the brothers would hear heavy footfalls outside their house, which understandably terrified them. They were met with disbelief by their parents, but shared their encounter with the Bigfoot Field Research Organization in 2004. In this case, it seems that curiosity played a role in driving Bigfoot behavior. What else might cause such creatures to approach places where people dwell? Could there be an impulse to communicate with us? A witness from Stanton, Kentucky, shared the following. This was right before Christmas, and we had record high temps close to 70, so I was hanging out on my parents' front porch. Last time I was there, I smacked some wood planks together and got a response, so I figured I would try again. So I stood up and grabbed a piece of wood. We just built their deck, so there are pieces laying around, and hit the handrail of the deck 3 times very slow. I waited not even 15 seconds and got 3 hits back. I was shocked because it sounded like it was no more than 50 feet away. My mom and dad keep a big flashlight right by their front door because I refused to get out of the car without them shining the light for me. I'm a chicken, I know. But I ran and grabbed the light and started shining it along the wood line and saw tree branches moving. There was no wind, so I know something had to be there. Well, I went back in, freaking out, and sat on the couch. I waited about an hour and went back out and was just standing there and heard footsteps off to the side of their house. Again, no more than 50 feet away. This time I didn't get the light because I didn't want it to run away. I sat out there for probably 15 minutes, and something walked basically back and forth the whole time. Scenarios like this suggest some sort of rudimentary interaction the intentions of which remain unexplained.
Do you think this behavior indicates curiosity, aggression, confusion, like just living their lives?
I think maybe a touch of a little bit of all that. I think they're very curious creatures. I think that we are very interesting to them as much as they are interesting to us. I don't think they want to be discovered. I don't think that they want to live with man. I think they want to live alongside with man. I think they want to exist in their way. But I think that their kind of coexistence is something. I think that they're very interested in what human beings are doing. And again, being an opportunist, that's the reason a bear will come into an encampment, through what it smells or what it hears, or things of that nature.
Some people will say that they will come right up into their yards, and it's hard to tell because what you think is a Bigfoot might be a bear. Around here, you're just not going to get that. So you're not going to get a lot of reports in Wayne County. You're not going to get a lot of reports in Oakland County, just because there's not a lot of area for an animal to hide. Are there deer? Every morning there are 5 deer in my backyard. I can't keep ornamental plants in my yard because they eat them. And I'm like, why are you eating my hostas? And they're looking at me. And I'm like, what are you doing? So there are food sources, but there's not a lot of places to hide. So when you get into an area like this, you're not going to have probably legitimate Bigfoot sightings. You're just not going to. But as you get out into areas that have more fields and more woods and things like that, it is possible. And maybe a Bigfoot will go into someone's yard to try to grab a bite to eat or something like that. Or look for Mittens, because Mittens might be out on a leash, and it's like, you know what? Cats. It's the other white meat.
I think a lot of it's curiosity. They're not really breaking in doors. They could break in a door if they wanted to. They'll jiggle door handles, car handles. I had it happen to me while trying to open my car door. So I think it's more curiosity, but you know how big and strong they are. They could bust in a house very easily if they wanted to. I think they're smart enough to know if they did that, they'll be manhunt and we would go kill them. And I tell people that all the time. They've adapted over thousands of years just to live alongside us in harmony, if you will, because they know what we do. We kill things. So they got to kind of keep their distance. There's a respect there that I think we have with each other, and that's why they've survived this long.
It's almost taken for granted that Bigfoot is intelligent and inquisitive by nature. This might account for its willingness to come close to human civilization, but some reports give the impression that the creature's proximity to people is basically coincidental, as in the following report from Hillsdale County, Michigan. My dad and his wife were sitting in front of their big bay window around 6:45, watching the deer grazing before the sun was going down. The deer were feeding for a good 20 to 30 minutes, and then my dad and his wife noticed the deer got spooked by something and ran off. They thought maybe a wolf, coyote, or a hunter scared them off. Then, my dad's wife noticed something walking across the field. They thought maybe it was a hunter with dark brown or dark, heavy clothes on. She grabbed their binoculars to get a better look because it was walking weird, and it seemed really tall, about 6 to 7 feet. And my dad was trying to get a good look without the binoculars and could tell it didn't look human. They both got an uneasy feeling. They said whatever it was walking casually. They could see the dark fur. Walking upright, as it walked through the field, it would stop and bend over. It did this a couple of times, maybe looking for food. Then it walked into the woods. They didn't hear anything weird after that. It was already dark, about 7:15 p.m. Then my dad told me a few nights ago he smelled a skunky, musty smell in the air and was also getting uneasy feelings every time he would go out to his backyard, which leads into the woods, like he was being watched. A few nights ago, he heard weird howling noises too. Sometimes, a sighting is a matter of split-second timing, a momentary glance revealing an unthinkable reality. consider this account from Edmonton County, Kentucky. It was a pretty warm summer's day around July or August, and I was inside my house in the living room watching TV. I just happened to get up and noticed some movement out in the front living room window, which was right beside. I saw this huge, unknown creature come running from the big woods across the road from my house, which is the Nolan Lake area, and run across the road and down our driveway, headed towards the back of our house. My dad had his car parked in the driveway, and as the creature passed, I noticed the top of the car struck the creature at about its lower waistline. As it went out of view and around the corner of the house, I immediately ran out the front door and to the corner of the house it had run around. Don't ask me why, I just did. I watched the creature from behind as it entered the cornfield behind our house, and it continued to run towards the thick wood behind our property. Bigfoot's activity around human homesteads may be incidental or completely intentional. Either way, the shock of a sighting is the same, and it's impossible to keep from speculating about a cause.
If I were trying to remain elusive, I'm going to avoid people. And it would take a lot for me to go to an area where I know people are going to be, because there's always a chance that someone's going to see me. And so I wonder what would make a creature do something like that, unless it's hungry or sick or injured or something like that. And in order to survive, it has to go for something easy to eat, or curiosity. I don't know. It just seems like a dumb thing to do if you want to stay hidden, to go hang out in the suburbs. I would avoid that if I were a big, hairy creature.
I got reports of neighborhoods, I'll give you a couple examples, where the neighborhoods are right on the edge of a big forest, and they're coming into these neighborhoods, into people's backyards. I think what they're doing is they're probing, they're looking for more territory to expand, to find a mate, to find more food. And they keep probing to do this, because I've got quite a few reports of them coming into neighborhoods, remote neighborhoods, not. So I think they do it for that reason. I don't think they do it to, again, confront us. They don't want anything to do with us.
Again, it goes back to food, water, and shelter, and there's a lot of that around people's houses. Dog food. Lots of folks talk about, that I've heard, tell me stories about Sasquatch in this area. They're getting into their outbuildings, or in a case like I have, metal trash cans sitting around with food or chicken food in there, or getting into chicken coops around people's farmhouses. And that's one of the reasons why I encased my coop with my livestock guardian dogs, is the predators that's constantly around here. But it makes perfect sense with the food, the shelter, and the water. They're opportunists, and I truly do believe that. And what better place to take advantage of an opportunity of food than at someone's house?
Witnesses are often deeply affected by seeing Bigfoot in the wild, in what we assign as its own territory. In those instances, we interpret the human as intruding upon Sasquatch's space. However, when the roles are reversed, it can feel almost like an invasion. A dramatic example of this was written about by Ohio-based investigator Dennis Polichis in his book Night Siege, which related the bizarre story of escalating phenomena surrounding a single home in Ashtabula County in 1980. 2 sightings of a Bigfoot-like entity kick-started an incredible progression of interactions, which included much gunfire and the attempt to poison a creature using live rabbits as bait. Only slightly less hair-raising is this report from Navarre, Ohio. In the summer, sometime between 1978 and 1980, in a swampy area near Stark County, a witness was on an evening stroll to visit a friend. It was a journey he made regularly along a path he was familiar with. Halfway along the trail, he heard a terrifying scream, one which, to this 12-year-old, was sufficiently terrifying to compel him to abandon his plans and run for home. Along the way, the witness reports that the creature followed him and emitted an overpowering stench. He would have another similar experience a month later while passing through on a bicycle. But even this would not be the end. Later on, the witness's brother and a friend had a far more terrifying encounter while passing time in a makeshift cabin they had constructed in the nearby woods. They had a shockingly up-close sighting of the creature from only a few feet away, prompting both witnesses to turn and run. The brother escaped with a tear in the back of his shirt and 3 long scratches on his back, which he claimed were given to him by the creature when it attempted to grab him. The witnesses described the creature as a huge, hairy thing around 7 or 8 feet tall. In situations like these, one wonders if home could feel like a place of peace and safety ever again.
You're seeing something in the woods, you feel very vulnerable in the forest. You don't have a place of retreat in the forest. You're at the mercy of what's around you in the forest. I think in your home, you have a place that you can go. It's your dwelling place. It's your place of safety. I think that in the forest, unless you're well acclimated with the forest, you feel very vulnerable.
I have 2 acquaintances that have moved. They were neighbors. They both saw it on 2 different occasions, and they put their houses up for sale right then and there. And they said mainly because they had kids, and they didn't know why the Sasquatch was coming and watching them. But it made them feel uneasy, and because they had children, they left. They said, if I didn't have kids, that might be another, story. But because I have kids, we were out of there. The one neighbor saw it at the tree line, watching. The other neighbor was driving his truck down the road and came up a little berm, and there it was standing in the middle of the road, right by his house.
When stuff happens out here, you 100% will change your routine. The worst feeling I have in the world is getting up to go to work at 5:30 in the morning and the motion light's on out there. I just want to go climb back in bed. But you got to force yourself to do that. When stuff's active, it feels like I would equate it to like being haunted. Stuff like your own backyard. I've come home and there'll be bricks up, out of place, setting up like on these ledges up here. Things will be moved around. There's stuff in the woods. I'm in these woods every day. I can see why people think that there's just people making these structures and stuff. But when you see it firsthand and you know how remotely you are out in the woods and this stuff pops up overnight, I really believe it should be looked at closer. There's times where it affects your work, it affects friendships. Even people that love you sometimes just smile at you and give you that look. They don't know what to do with your story. They want to believe you. But until they've had that experience, they don't know how to put it. And I've had a lot of people here that have had experiences that have nothing to do with cryptids. My sister got hit in the head with a projectile out here. She's not into any of this. And she came in and she's like, something just hit me in the head. My cousin's out here. He's heard tree knocking. He got really scared. Something walked up to him when he was in the screen room. A lot of people that I've heard like a power knock when they're getting in their cars to leave. That's happened to a lot of, in the same place, different times, different years. It's really when you start kind of putting it all together, like, so-and-so told me the same thing when they left. As soon as they got a signal, hey man, something really weird just happened. It was right on top of that hill. I'm like, I've heard that like 3 times now. But that's great because now they have their own experience. It's not me. Sometimes I think it's just you have to experience it to truly to believe it.
Do you want to continue to have experiences?
I do. This is what's funny. It draws you. Okay. I love seeing lights in the woods. I would love to be able to see something, catch something on a FLIR at a distance, but when something's hitting your cabin and you're sleeping when you're sleeping with your gun at night, which I've done multiple times here, you start to question that. Like, is this really worth it? Do I really want to if I want to continue to live here, do I really want to see it on this property? I have seen some things, nothing to scare me from from absolutely moving.
The concept of home is so fundamental to us that it barely needs to be explained. Ideally, it's a place of stability and nurture. When that place is threatened, the response is instinctual and forceful. But what if the threat to home is beyond our ability to defend against? That's the elemental fear at the heart of a home-based Bigfoot sighting. It's the realization that there's something out there far bigger, stronger, and faster than us that can come and go as it pleases with utter disregard for property lines, fences, and security cameras. But perhaps there is some comfort in the thought that if Sasquatch, as a rule, wanted to raid human homes and eliminate us, it would have done so long before now. If it's true that Sasquatch is in fact a mystery primate, then it has some sense of what a family group is. And maybe it recognizes something in us that it wants to inspect, concealed in backyard shadows.
In this area, people say that they see things close to their house. I had one fellow who's a very good friend of mine who was camping in southeastern part of Kentucky and had a very bad encounter with a very aggressive Sasquatch, which he and his wife to this day are very afraid to talk about. One that was aggressive around the home, one that beat on doors, one that made all kinds of noise all night long in a very, very fearful way.
Depends on the person, really. The sudden and very abrupt epiphany that there's something out there that you were told doesn't exist. And when that hits you, it's a really kind of hard thing to, some people don't ever talk about it again. They don't want to go back in the woods again. Personally, I'm like, show me more. I was scuba diving off Key Largo, and I saw it was my first shark sighting. I'm the kind of guy that went after it, right? It was so cool. It saw me first and it had turned tail already, but that was just neat. I'd want to see more. That's just my thing, because I'm just a kid in the woods, right? I'm trying to have fun. I think most people's paradigms would be shattered. It might screw some people up beyond repair. I've been screwed up pretty good after some certain encounters, and I've just learned to kind of get over it, because there's not anybody out there I can talk to. And I don't even try anymore, because they cannot fathom this reality. It is a reality. It's like, wake up, boys and girls.
A little bit, they're concerned. I got a report last week. A lady saw Bigfoot leaving her cabin, and they called us. We were supposed to go there last night, and something happened. There was a medical emergency, but she says, I'm very concerned. We've had another witness had also seen the Bigfoot about a year prior on my property. I don't like that. And I said, don't worry. If it wanted you, it would have had you already. I think they're probing, they're looking for food or whatever they're looking for. They're not trying to hurt you. They're more curious. And I told them, if you want them to go away, put up game cameras, put up security lights. They avoid game cameras, as we know. They avoid security lights. If you do that, they're not going to come around very often.
My name is Jay Courtland, and the sighting took place in Mason County, Michigan, just west of a small town called Fountain, Michigan, which is kind of in central Mason County. Well, what happened is I was driving, actually a taxi that night, and I was picking up a girl that closed a little tavern in the town of Fountain, Michigan, and I had picked her up several times. And we always took the same route down Fountain Road, and that's how we got to her house, to take her home. And I'd picked her up for probably like a 3-week stretch, like 3 nights a week I'd driven down this road. And it was always about between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. because whenever the bar would get dead, she would close it down and call me, and I'd go pick her up. This particular night, it was 2 a.m. There was no cars on the road, on Fountain Road, just me and her. And because I knew the girl We usually had people sit in the back, but she was sitting in the front seat by me. And we were driving a Dodge Caravan style van. We came around this little bend out of Fountain. The road curves and then it straightens, and we went up. There's a slight hill. I wouldn't know if I'd even call it a hill, but it does come up a little bit. And once we got over that hill, we both at the same time noticed these eyes. We didn't know they were eyes at first. We noticed these two kind of yellow glowing objects off the side of the road, and we're both kind of like, I wasn't going that fast yet because I just came out of Fountain where there's a curve, and I was probably going 35, 40 miles an hour. She saw it too, and she's like, Jay, what the heck is that? And I'm like, I thought I kind of knew what it was as we got closer, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is really cool. I slowed down to 20 miles an hour. I made sure my high beams were on, and the creature was on the right side of the road, which would have been her side, the passenger side. And she quit talking as we got closer. She didn't say a word to me anymore. And she was like, just locked on it. You know, I kind of glanced at her, and she's like not moving and staring at this thing. And as we get closer to it, I was gonna come to a complete stop because I thought, man, if I could get a picture of this would be cool. And I had a phone with me, you know, which I don't know how good of a picture it would have been. But as soon as I said I was gonna stop, she reached over, she didn't say anything, she just slapped my leg, and she's like, no, you're not stopping. But I just went as slow as I could. The last time I looked at the speedometer, I was below 20, and we're coming right up on this thing, and there's a big tree, and it's standing just on the other side of the tree, but enough that you could see its whole upper body, its shoulders, its head. It had long hair, like grayish white colored hair. It wasn't dark at all. It was very windy that night. Its hair was actually blowing across its face, and you could see the hair kind of was hitting its shoulders and blowing across its face. It had huge eyes. I would say we both talked about it after this. I'd say like the size of a golf ball, roughly. You know, way bigger than I've never seen a human with eyes like that. You could see its nostrils were kind of flat to its face, and they were much larger than a human's, but it was not robustly built. I mean, it was big. It was probably 8 or 9 foot tall, but I would say describe it as kind of thin. Hair on its arms was probably that long, like that hung off its forearms. The longest hair was on its head, and it didn't move, like it didn't run across in front of us. But the way it was standing, you could tell that it's almost like it didn't expect somebody to be coming down the road right then. And it was literally just by chance, we caught this creature on the side of the road, and it was going to cross the road. We saw it really good because we had the high beam lights on. I mean, I couldn't see its feet, but I could see basically from its torso up. And it was more of a side view because it was, you know, we're coming in the van this way, and it's standing with the tree here. It's going to go around the tree and cross the road. In my opinion, that's a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, I mean, is what it was. It didn't have pointy ears. I couldn't really see its ears. Its hair was it had too much hair, and it was too long. But it looked at us. I remember I stared right into its eyes. It sounds weird, but its eyes, it made me feel like it had a lot of intelligence, like you were looking at a really smart creature. She thought the same thing after we talked when we got to her house. She goes, how old do you think that thing was? And I go, I have no idea, but who knows? They might live hundreds of years old. I don't know. And she goes, it just seemed so peaceful. It seemed gentle. It didn't seem like it would have done anything to us. It just kind of looked at us like, okay, people, you just keep going in your van, and I want to do what I want to do, and I want to cross the road. You know, and there was no hostility. It didn't like lurch out at the vehicle or do anything crazy or throw anything at us or anything. And like I said, I wanted to come to a complete stop, but she didn't want to, so she's the customer, you know, so I didn't want to scare her like that. We got to her house. She didn't speak. It's about 4 miles roughly to her house. She was just dumbfounded. She didn't say a word. We got out to US 31, and I had to stop there and turn left to go to her road. And if she sees this, like this is somewhere that she sees this interview I'm doing, she would totally agree, because she goes, I'll never forget that. We got to her house, and then she could finally speak. And she kind of didn't even know what to say at first, and she's just like, Jay, we saw Sasquatch, didn't we? And I'm like, yeah. And she went through all the animals that live out there. She's like, yeah, there's horses, there's cows. There's even a guy that has those things called alpacas or whatever. And she's like, you know, normal farm animals. She's like, it was none of those. She's like, there's no way it was a person that tall that looked like that. I mean, nobody has a costume like that could, yet alone, she's like, they'd have to be on stilts to be that tall, and it would look unnatural. And this thing, she's like, it looked like a real creature. She thought it was old because she goes, it was skinny. She goes, it wasn't big or strong. It was just big. It had like a big frame. Its arms were long. It was tall. Its head was probably, I would guess that, like that, quite a bit bigger than longer and taller than a person's. We talked about it for probably 15 minutes, and then, I left her at her house and went home. She had contacted me 2 or 3 times on Facebook Messenger in years after that, just to talk about it, just to say, remember that night that we saw that Sasquatch? And she thought it was that cool. And then I just kind of lost touch with her because she was never like a close friend. She was just a customer of ours. And so I don't really know what happened to her, but she found me on Facebook Messenger and would talk about it. And I thought that was cool because I like talking about it too, but I always wanted to see a Bigfoot, but I never thought I would see one like that just on the side of the road. This was back in 2018, I should mention that. So basically 7 years ago. It was a little later than this in the year, I would say about June, and we had a clear view. I mean, it was in our bright headlights. It was standing right on the side of the road. There was no bushes or anything like that. There was a tree, and it was kind of coming behind that tree and getting across the road. But I would say we saw it as good as we could probably see one. The terrain is a mixture of farmland with then small woodlots. There's small farms. I shouldn't say small. There's some big farms in that part of Mason County. There was a little farm right before we got to it, and it's pretty much flat with little cedar swamps and woodlots scattered around. It's not real high terrain. There was a higher spot in the road, and we came around the curve at a fountain up that high spot. Then the road kind of levels back out, and that's when we saw the Bigfoot. But like she said, she's like, at 2 a.m, not many cars go down this road. She goes, we've never seen this thing before, but that doesn't mean maybe it crosses here all the time. We wouldn't know. And who would know? You're not driving around that late to potentially even see this creature. Where it was going was just a big field, like a pasture for cattle is what it was. And then south of that was another nice chunk of woods and a little swampy area. But I wouldn't say it was it wasn't like you were right in the middle of the national forest. There was homes and farms scattered probably every half mile roughly. There might be a little farm or something. Not as populated as this immediate area, nothing like that, but basically typical Michigan farmland is what it was.